Alright, and we're on in 3, 2, 1. This is Holographic Harley with Harley. I'm Harley. Here we go. So today's talk is on what society is, the megapixels, and how society works, the picture, by defining and identifying the logic of practice. For once you understand the megapixels, you can see the picture. But where do we start? It all begins with understanding the ways of time. The ways of time is an emphasis upon structure. Time is the meta-narrative puppeteering the matrix of society. A meta-narrative which, if you are unaware of, causes an effect of you replaying residuals of the day before. Now, let's delve into the mind of Pierre Bourdieu, and we'll start with structure. Structure is simply that which has been practiced from generation after generation. For instance, going to work. You wake up, you go to work, you work 8+ hours a day, you come home, and you're up again early. You repeat the cycle. Once this routine becomes habituated, it morphs into a residual of the day before. And this line of logic leads to the habitus. For Bourdieu, the habitus is a structuring structure who organizes practices. So what the bleep does that mean? Well, the habitus is you, and you are the habitus. And so, once the practice of time, or rather structure, becomes subconscious, it becomes taken for granted, and this causes behavior to become habituated. And this is where meaning comes from in the logic of practice. Once you couple time and structure with yourself, with the habitus, it introduces you to a way of life. And when you couple this with a group of people, or rather a nation, it creates that which is seen as socially meaningful, culture. For Bourdieu, culture arises through the compacts of belief systems, the social compacts. This practice, which affects and affects humankind to merely act and react around the construct of clocks and time. For structure normalizes the collective of culture to thus, thereby, form a belief system. But what is a belief? To me, a belief is merely a thought repeated over and over and over once more until it becomes your tangible reality. And when you couple this with a group of people, it becomes culture. And so, indeed, structure or time permeates the mind of the habitus, which is you, to create the collective compacts of norms. And this is what permeates the normalization of culture, or rather, the meta-narrative of time, that which is hiding in plain sight. And so, the logic of practice is to see that everything is a social construct, a reference point. Even space, for instance. Space is a social construct. NASA once they gave Pluto the definition of a planet, but then they changed it and called it a dwarf planet, and now it is a dwarf planet, but some still define Pluto as a planet. And so space, in that sense, is a social construct. And this leads us to agency. So, what is agency? Well, for Bourdieu, there are two dimensions of agency. One-dimensional agency and two-dimensional agency. One-dimensional agency reflects itself as a menu of choices. Currently, I reside in Blacksburg. You could have a 622 menu or a lefties menu. But your choices are reflected. They are a replica of what is on the menu. And so one-dimensional agency is to see that your choices are constrained, are limited by the menu. What you eat is a byproduct of your menu. a byproduct of your environment. Now, let's say you are at a different restaurant. This is where two-dimensional agency comes in. You're at a restaurant with jazz musicians, and this is agency of improv. In essence, once you, the habitus, becomes conscious of your subconscious, by improvising, you can change your ingredients on the menu, but you are still holding on to a menu, which is sitting at a restaurant. For instance, a saxophonist in New York will improvise much differently than a saxophonist in New Orleans. In New Orleans, the saxophonist might be a bit smoother on tone and pitch, but in New Orleans, the saxophonist might have more soul and less pitch. And so, even though both the saxophonists are indeed improvising, their styles are still limited based upon the structure of their collective environment, their culture, and this vibe shapes and forms the style of their agency. Now, let's connect the dots, the megapixels, as so we may see the picture, the identification of society, the matrix. In the matrix, meaning is only real if it is socially accepted and agreed upon by the masses. Structure is what feeds meaning into the habitus, you, and the habitus feeds meaning by sharing it, by expressing it with the collective of humanity, culture, and culture feeds meaning into the dimensions of agency. And so, in the logic of practice, meaning takes form only if it is socially compacted by that which it came from. This is also known as post-structuralism, meaning as an external-internal phenomena and relationship. But in my eyes, to me, it's as though the self accepts their limitations, as so they may create meaning within a box of many other boxes. And so in the next video, transcending the logic of practice, we shall transcend the box of all limitations. However, you cannot transcend nor change that which you do not own. To see this, you must return to the source of that which you came from, home. Only then shall you understand what it truly, truly means to know thyself. Until then, be well.